Y'all, my name is Danelia DJ, and welcome to a space where purpose, love, and unity thrive. We are breaking barriers between the religious and the rejected. This is Between Me and Thee.
Hey y'all, this is Between Me and Thee. I'm your host, Danelia DJ, and this is a space where faith is alive, love is loud, and purpose is powerful. Let's get right into our song of the week, which is I.O. by Karen Clark Sheard. This is a powerful song, y'all. It is a shifting of the heart type of song, and it is going to set the tone for this episode. So actually, if you've never listened to it or haven't heard it in a while, pause this episode and go and listen to that right now. And once you come back and finish this episode, go listen to it again because it's really that powerful, y'all. Now, let's get started and continue with our scripture, which is John 15, 4 and 5. And it says, "Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing." So obviously, you've read the title. We're talking about entitlement of expectation. So what do these words mean apart from each other? Well, entitlement is defined as the fact of having a right to something, while expectation is defined as the belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. So let's talk about it, y'all. Have you ever felt like you deserve something from God? Not because you feel like you're a perfect being or you feel like you've done all the right things, right? But simply because you're like, I chose this Christian lifestyle, right? I chose you, God. I'm not who I used to be, and I don't do things that I used to do anymore. So at some point in time, these prayers should have been answered, right? Some of us may opt in and say that's faith. Some of us may even just say it's expectation because of faith, right? But somewhere along the journey, our expectation picked up a sense of ownership. Now, I have had those problems before. I've had that battle. I've been in those battles consistently, continuously, all the time, right? Because we become comfortable with expecting God to be God, but losing focus of who he called us to be, right? And we began to put these silent agreements in place. God, I will follow you if you do this. God, I will follow you if this happens, right? God, I will follow you if you protect me. God, I will follow you if you provide for me. God, I will move to that city, that state, that county, if you make sure I have somewhere to live. If you make sure that I don't lose everything. God, I will quit my job if you make sure I'm financially stable. God, I will get rid of my car if you make sure I have another mode of transportation, right? God, I will do X, Y, and Z if you do X, Y, and Z on your end. These are the silent agreements that we set in place, right? Because it's not that we're always saying these things out loud or we're always thinking these things. And it's not even, sometimes we're not even sharing these, even with people we believe we can confide in spiritually, right? Even with people we may get our spiritual counsel from or our spiritual advice and all the things. We don't even share these things sometimes with people, right? These are just the things that we've created in our own heart and our own minds, right? That we are placing these certain expectations on God, right? So we create those silent agreements. And God doesn't pull through on those, right? We feel like now our silent agreements have been violated. And we began to be frustrated because we feel like God didn't show up like he was supposed to, like he said he was, like he should do, right? We began to get disappointed. We began to lessen our time with God. We began to lessen our dedication. We began to lose our zeal. We may stop showing up at church, serving for others. We may even stop showing up for ourselves, right? Because we may be becoming, we may become malnourished spiritually, right? We stop reading our word. We stop fasting. We stop praying. You know, we get into those spaces where it's like, why should I talk to God when he's not talking to me, when he's not showing up for me, when he's not being God for me, right? Somewhere along this journey, we have attached our own timelines, our own expected outcomes to God, right? We began to treat our obedience as a transaction. And we feel that, God, you should show up. You must show up in the ways that I'm asking, because I am living in obedience. I'm obeying you. I chose you. I chose Christianity. I chose to live a life that's pleasing to you. And so we treat our obedience like God owes us something, right? And then when he doesn't show up because of those timelines and outcomes that we created on our own, that God never promised, we begin to get disappointed. We feel like he didn't show up in the way he should. And we begin to ask questions like, why me? Why this? Why now? Why is all of this happening to me? Why, God? Why is this happening to me, right? And we begin to lack in the areas needed to continue to seek God and live a life. We begin to expect fruit without us actually abiding in him. We begin to expect God to move on our behalf without us actually yielding. And we begin to expect answers from God without intimacy. We have no relationship, right? But yet we feel like God has failed us in the way that he was supposed to come through. And it's not because God has actually failed us. It's not because God has actually not showed up for us, right? It's not that God has broke any promises, because those were the silent agreements that we set on our own that God never promised. It's the areas that we feel disappointed, where we feel like, God, you must do this. And the reality is that God can do any and everything, right? However, what he will do in our lives is a requirement, or is contingent upon our relationship with him. It's contingent upon our obedience and our surrendering to him, right? And expectation isn't wrong. It's wrong, or it becomes wrong, when it becomes a requirement for what God must do. And when we begin to ask those questions, we're not even wrong asking those questions, right? These questions don't come out of curiosity. They come from this expectation. But let's have a brief moment for a heart check. If God never does the thing that you are believing for, is he still good? If God never fixes it, if God never restores it, and even if he never explains it, is God still worthy of your obedience? Because here's the thing. Real faith doesn't need a guarantee. It trusts God's nature, not his outcome. And that's hard. It's very uncomfortable. But that is where expectation dies and intimacy begins, right? Because we can abide in God in those moments, and we can allow him to deal with those parts of us that do not produce fruit. And that means we have to go through that pruning process, right? And that pruning process, it hurts, right? It doesn't feel good, because God is cutting away things that seem alive or look alive, but don't actually sustain us or won't sustain us where we're going. Right? Now, here's the flip side to that. Maybe you're not frustrated because you're in circumstances. Maybe you're not frustrated because of what you're dealing with, like the situation that you're dealing with, or prayers not being answered, or whatever it looks like it may not be answered. Maybe you're not frustrated because you're dealing, or you're enduring because you're seeking God, right? Maybe you feel like, I'm praying, I'm seeking, I'm walking this walk, and I'm operating in my gifts to the best way I know how, right? So maybe you're not frustrated with the endurance of situations or being a follower of Christ. Maybe your frustration comes with being in the same season, or being in the wilderness season after season. Maybe you feel like, God, I've been in this same place time and time again, right? And you're like, God, I look this way, I look that way, right? And it feels like people who aren't even seeking you, people who don't care to seek you, people who aren't worshiping you, who don't care to praise you, people who don't even want anything to do with you, Lord, are winning. They're rising. They're moving faster than me, right? But here I am, seeking you, worshiping you, trying to do everything the right way. And I'm not mad that I'm going through things because I love you and I want to worship you and I honor you, God. But what I can't understand, God, is why am I still in the wilderness? When do I see the fruits of my work, of my labor, of my honoring you, right? When do I get out of this space where it's always hard? When do I no longer sit in the space where it seems like it's never a good day, right? When does it get better? When am I allowed out of the isolation period, God? When do I no longer have to watch because there are people who don't mean good surrounding me, Lord? When am I able to speak freely because you have connected me to the right individuals or you have placed me in the right room, Lord? And I don't have to hold back the good that you've done because there's someone out to get me or there's someone praying against me or praying on me, PREY, right? When am I able to share what you've done because you've connected me to those friends that are also seeking you, Lord? Right? When do I get to walk in the dreams that you have given me? Because, Lord, I am putting in the work. I am seeking you. I am honoring you. And it seems like I look everywhere around me, Lord. And not that we're always just intentionally trying to look at other people, right? Sometimes you're literally just living your life and living for God. And you just begin to notice things happening for people. And you feel like, Lord, they're not even passionate about you. They're not even passionate about the things that maybe you went for a job, right? Maybe you went for a job that someone else went for and you're passionate about it and they just have the qualifications for it, right? And so maybe you're like, Lord, they're not even passionate about the job that they just got hired for, right? Maybe you feel like people are reaching out to you for your potential and choosing other people. Maybe people are reaching out for you because of your spiritual relationship. Maybe you feel like these people know that you have a relationship for God and they expect certain things of you. And you feel like you're always the one to help others, encourage others, and lift up others and be there as spiritual counsel for others. And you feel like, God, I just want to see you show up in my life. I want to be in a season where all of the work that I've put in, all of the ways that I've honored you and all of the things that I chose because I truly desire to do it, Lord. It's not that I'm just doing it because it looks cute or it sounds good. I truly desire to do this, Lord. But I just never expected to always be in the wilderness part of things, right? Maybe that's you. Maybe you're wondering when the wilderness is over. And here's the thing. Maybe you're even asking, what am I doing wrong? Where have I missed your hand, God? Where have I not heard you or went the right direction that you told me to go? And maybe it's not about you mishearing God. Maybe it's not even that you're doing anything wrong. Maybe God is saying it's not about that. You're exactly where I want you to be. You're exactly where I placed you, and I need you to be there. And yes, that season is hard. Yes, others seem like they're bypassing you. Yes, it seems like you're not winning, right? It seems like you're doing this for me, and you're getting turned and hit and bruised on every side, right? But I need you right there. Because maybe what's attached to you requires more. Maybe it requires more oil. Maybe it requires more restraint. Maybe it requires more healing, right? There are some of us that we are in this life and it feels like, Lord, I can't move like they move. I can't do what they do. Or I can't even try things that other people would try, right? Because there's more attached to you. There are lives attached to you. There are places and rooms attached to you that require you to have a certain thing or a certain place or a certain dedication to God, right? A certain space or honor and reverence at a certain level, right? Because each time that God takes us to a new height or a new level, there are other weights attached, right? We may feel like we're dealing with devils and demons in certain levels, but the higher that God takes you, the more demons and devils you deal with, right? And so maybe God is building your endurance. Maybe God is building that peace. Maybe God is building that ability to be slow to speak and slow to anger, right? Because maybe you don't get angry easily right now, right? But maybe you still get angry after a few, right? Maybe it's not immediate anger, but maybe it's like 3 seconds in, now I'm angry, right? Maybe it's like 10 minutes in, now I'm angry. Maybe there's something that God is building in you, right? That you need to have it strong. You need to have a strong foundation in that certain area so that when you reach the space in the room that God is putting you in, that it's easier to deal with. Not that it would just be easy totally, but it'll be easier to deal with. It'll be easier to endure because you already dealt with it. You already faced it. Or God has already given you the skill set that you needed in the season before, right? To deal with what was in the next season. So maybe what's attached to you requires more, right? Because some of our callings can't afford a shortcut. And some of us have gifts that require that we be unknown because visibility too soon would damage who God is building you to be, right? So if you were introduced to things that God has for you in the next season with last season's endurance, you would break in that next season, right? You wouldn't be able to withstand it. You wouldn't be able to uphold the responsibility that comes with that next season. You wouldn't be able to handle the things that would come at you in that next season, right? But in the season that you're in, that God is building you up. He's building you up for what you're going to face in the next season, right? So you're not being punished. You're being prepared. And maybe what you see as a delay is God protecting the weight of what's coming. So here's my final question for you. If apart from God, you can do nothing, can you trust that connected to Him, you'll be everything He's called you to be in the right time? That's all I have for y'all. Make sure you remember to go and pass the blessing, send an encouraging word. You can tag someone on our Instagram or YouTube and give them an encouraging word. You can send it to them directly. If God has laid someone on your heart, make sure you are praying for them and make sure you check on them. But make sure you send someone else an encouraging word because you just never know how God may use you to encourage someone else. Love y'all. Bye.
This has been Between Me and Thee. Be sure to let your light shine and join the conversation on Instagram or YouTube. Until next time.